Mr. Talib, thank you very much for your time. What does this mean then for the country?
PetroSA has been making large losses for the past many years. In 2014, it lost 14 billion. At that stage, the largest loss for any state-owned enterprise. But this is a structural issue. Even when it had gas, it made large losses. So, for example, last year it lost 666 million. The previous year it lost 2.1 billion. In both annual reports from those years, the Auditor General, and I'm going to read from his finding, he said that I draw attention to the statement of profit and loss, etc. I indicate that a material uncertainty exists on the company's ability to continue as a going concern. So for the past few years, this is what the Auditor General has been finding for PetroSA with gas. And this is after it spent a lot of money exploring for gas and opening up gas fields. So quite simply, at oil price levels below about $60 or $70 a barrel, PetroSA is not a going concern. And this is a very serious issue because my heart goes out to the 1,500 workers, their families, the economy of Mossel Bay, etc. But we can't wish into being a situation which doesn't exist. So we have to be very sober and we have to face the facts, the reality of this matter, and we have to have a stable energy policy and we have to apply it. We don't have an energy policy. We haven't had one for some time. Unfortunately, there's been big problems inside the governing party, people pulling in one direction and another. So energy ministers swap every year and they blow in the wind. I feel sorry for them. Gwedi Mantashe, it does seem, is showing some sense recently where he has admitted that, for example, other very large assets, investments that South Africa has are big coal-fired power stations. Some of them simply, the cost of running them does not cover the cost of the electricity coming out of them. You can't sell the electricity for what it costs to make in those power stations.
Let me ask you this question then.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Can this state-owned entity be saved, or is it among those that urgently needs an equity partner?
It can't be saved, and if you look for an equity partner, nobody will buy it. Well, I shouldn't predict that, but I will predict that, because if you look at the cash flow, in other words, this is not even looking at paying for capital. It runs at a loss. So the same as those power stations. So we just have to face up to the fact that time moves on, certain investments and businesses come and go, and we have to move on. And the sooner we do it, the better for everybody, because I feel very sorry for those workers. But remember this, if you take 2016, when it lost 2.1 billion, in that year, on top of paying every one of those workers, each one of those workers added, each one, to the debt of South Africa, 1.4 million rand. So that money doesn't come from nowhere. That money comes out of money that should be spent on housing, should be spent on health, should be spent on education. So what South Africa is doing is, firstly, it's running at a massive deficit. Its deficit has gone now to ratios above 1994. So we're not only taking from current children and hospital patients, etc., but we're taking from the future. So we have to just face this situation. Running out of gas will make things worse for PetroSA, because then instead of taking gas and turning it into petrol, what it has to do, it has to import condensate. And that has never been a profitable business for PetroSA. So I'm afraid it's a very simple story. It's a business whose costs exceed its ability to bring in revenue. And so it is bankrupt. The Auditor General has said that he very, very formally says that it is no longer a going concern. It's sad but true.
It's a very desperate situation. Mr. Talib, I must thank you very much for your time. That was energy expert Hilton Talib joining us via Skype from